He was a man built for conflict. His name is now Khalid, but back then everyone knew him as Michael. He was a soldier in the United States Army, trained to fight, trained to dominate, and trained to view the world through the sights of a weapon. Growing up in the deep south of Louisiana, where faith was loud and traditions were ironclad, Michael was taught two things above all else: love your country and fear anything that didn't look or pray like you. By the time he put on the uniform, Michael was carrying more than just a rifle. He was carrying a lifetime of anger. He was a young man with a chip on his shoulder the size of a tank. Having failed out of college and struggling with his own demons, the military was his last resort to make something of himself. He wanted discipline, he wanted purpose. But inside he was chaos. And then there was Islam. To Michael, Islam wasn't just a religion, it was the enemy. This was the mindset he had absorbed from the news, from the whispers in the barracks, and from the culture around me. He looked at Muslims with suspicion, actually. It was more than suspicion, it was disdain. He thought they were backward. He thought they were dangerous. Every time he saw a soldier with a name that sounded different, he put a wall up. One day, during a training deployment, Michael saw a fellow soldier, an African-American man like himself, doing something he couldn't understand. It was the middle of the day, the sun was beating down on the base, and while the rest of the unit was joking around or smoking, this man was in a corner, washing his face, his arms, and his feet. He moved with a strange calmness that irritated Michael. Then, the man stood on a small rug and began to bow. Michael walked over to him, his boots crunching loudly on the gravel, intending to mock him. He wanted to shake him out of his trance. He stood over the praying soldier, waiting for a reaction, waiting for anger. But the man didn't flinch. He finished his prayer, turned his head to the right, then to the left, and looked up at Michael with a smile that he would never forget. It wasn't a smile of fear. It was a smile of absolute peace. "Why are you doing that?" Michael asked, his voice dripping with arrogance. "Why do you pray to a moon god? Why do you hate us?" He expected a fight. He was ready for a shouting match. But the soldier just looked at him calmly and said, "Brother, you don't know what you're talking about. You're judging something you've never studied. You're a smart man, aren't you? A soldier doesn't engage an enemy he hasn't reconnoitered. Why don't you read my book before you attack it?" That challenge hit Michael's ego hard. The soldier was right. He was attacking blindly. Michael decided right then and there that he would read his book, the Quran, not to understand it, but to destroy it. He wanted to find the errors. He wanted to find the hate. He wanted to come back to that soldier with highlighted pages and say, "See? See? I told you so." He got a translation of the Quran. He also grabbed his Bible. He sat in his barracks at night, under the dim light of a desk lamp, ready for war. He opened the Quran with a cynical heart. "In the name of God, the most gracious, the most merciful." He paused. That wasn't what he expected. He kept reading. He was looking for violence, but he found verses about patience. He was looking for hatred, but he found verses about honoring parents, about charity, about the oneness of God. Night after night, the battle Michael intended to fight against the book began to turn into a battle against himself. He read about Jesus' peace be upon him and was shocked. He didn't know Muslims loved Jesus. He didn't know they believed in his miraculous birth. He didn't know they honored Mary. The bridge between his upbringing and this foreign faith was suddenly being built, brick by brick, verse by verse. But the real turning point came when he read about the creation of the heavens and the earth. The Quran spoke of the planets in orbit, the development of the embryo, the water cycle, things that a man in the desert 1,400 years ago could impossibly have known on his own. Michael's logical mind, the mind of a soldier trained to analyze facts, began to crumble. There was one night specifically. It was 3 a.m. The barracks were silent. Michael was reading a verse that asked, "Has not the time come for those who believe that their hearts should submit to the remembrance of God?" He slammed the book shut. His heart was racing. He felt like he was standing on the edge of a cliff. If he accepted this, he would lose everything. His family in Louisiana would disown him. His fellow soldiers would look at him as a traitor. He was an American soldier. How could he be a Muslim? The two identities felt like oil and water in his head. He tried to run from it. He stopped reading for a few days. He went back to drinking, back to partying, trying to drown out the voice in his head. But the silence in his heart was deafening. Nothing tasted the same. The fun felt empty. He missed the peace he felt when he was reading those pages. He went back to the Muslim soldier. He didn't have any insults left. Michael looked at him, defeated, and asked, "What do I have to do?" The soldier didn't gloat. He didn't say, "I told you so."
He simply guided him. He told Michael that Islam wasn't about changing his skin or his country. It was about submitting his will to the creator of the heavens and the earth. On a quiet afternoon, inside a small, nondescript room, Michael sat down. His hands were shaking. He felt the weight of his entire past life pressing down on him, the anger, the mistakes, the misconceptions. He took a deep breath and he let it all go. Ashhadu an la ilaha illa Allah, he stammered. Wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasul Allah. He bore witness that there is no God but God, and he bore witness that Muhammad is his messenger. The moment those words left his lips, something miraculous happened. It wasn't a lightning bolt from the sky. It was a physical sensation of weight being lifted off his chest. For the first time in his life, the anger that had fueled him for 20 years simply evaporated. Michael began to weep. Uncontrollable tears, a grown man, a soldier, sobbing like a child. It was the tears of a soul that had finally come home after being lost in the storm for so long. But the journey had just begun, and the road ahead was not paved with roses. When he told his family, the reaction was exactly what he feared. His mother, a devout Christian woman, was heartbroken. She thought he was lost to the devil. She wouldn't speak to him. For 2 years, there was a silence between them that hurt more than any physical wound. In the army, things were tough. This was a time when tensions were high. Michael would walk into a room and the conversation would stop. He heard the whispers. Is he with us or with them? Can we trust him? He had to work twice as hard to prove that his faith made him a better soldier, not a worse one. Islam taught him discipline, integrity, and punctuality traits that are the bedrock of military service. He didn't drink anymore. He didn't get into bar fights. He was focused. One day, his commander called him in. Michael thought he was in trouble. The commander looked at him and said, "Shabazz, I don't know what happened to you, but whatever you're doing, keep doing it. You're the most disciplined officer I have." That was the vindication. He realized that the best form of dawah, the best way to spread the message, wasn't through arguments, but through character. Years went by. Michael climbed the ranks. He went from being an enlisted soldier to becoming a chaplain, a spiritual leader for thousands of troops. The man who once hated Islam was now the one leading the Friday prayers for Muslim soldiers in the U.S. Army. He was the one, counseling young men and women who were just as angry and lost as he once was. He remembers leading a prayer in the middle of a desert deployment. They were miles from home, surrounded by the machinery of war. As they bowed their heads in sujud, pressing their foreheads into the dust, Michael realized the profound irony of Allah's plan. He took a boy from Louisiana, full of hate and confusion, put him in the most unlikely of places, and guided him to the light. His relationship with his family eventually healed. His mother, seeing the change in his character, seeing that he was kinder, more patient, more loving, accepted him again. She realized that Islam hadn't taken her son away. It had given her a better version of him. Today, when Khalid looks in the mirror, he doesn't see the angry young Michael anymore. He sees a servant of Allah. He sees a man who found peace in the middle of a war zone. To anyone listening who feels lost, who feels like their past is too dark for God to forgive, or who thinks they are too far gone, Khalid is living proof that Allah guides whom He wills. He went looking for a fight, and instead, he found his soul. And that is the greatest victory he will ever know.